Hello. Hi, glad you made it. I don't know what that was, but
When you click on the link that was sent out, it didn't like it for some reason. So thank you for that, Penny. I appreciate
yeah,
it.
sure. Okay. Well, we can get started. Oh, I see their videos aren't on. Hang on a sec. Okay. You could, anybody that wants to, please turn your videos on unless you don't want us to see you, because we only see a few of us here and there are a lot more of us. But if you don't want to, that's certainly okay. Oh, hello. All righty. Well, does somebody, I don't see any questions in the chat. Does anybody want to? Ah, okay. RSC got your message. No problem. Okay, anybody want? Oh, somebody's hands up. There you go, Tom.
All right, let's go.
We need to unmute yourself. Here.
Sorry. Hey,
It's all
Ron,
right.
how are you? How's your
Doing well,
back?
thank you.
Good, good. My question is, in your playing today, what are you working on? What has your attention?
In my physical playing or in my emotional playing?
Both.
Well, my emotional playing is private, but having said that, my current, the bane of my existence is working on the B flat on the A string, which always feels sharp to me. So I'm monitoring myself in my mirror, like as I recommend my students to do, to maybe I'm curving my first finger more like this than like this. That's taken up most of my time for the past 2 weeks because it's driving me crazy to play a B flat in tune on the E string and the B flat sharp on the A string. That can't be the case if the bass is in tune. So right now, my current concern is, can I make my hands be like 4 individual cables to go right across the bass like this, so that this note is in tune like this note, is in tune like this note, is in tune like this note is supposed to be.
Thank you. So four individual cables across the instrument.
Absolutely. And I think I've kind of gotten out of the habit of not doing that correctly. And my B flat on the A string is just sharp enough to make my hair grow faster.
You're in trouble.
Yes. You've been there.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. DeRay, am I saying you're pronouncing your last name
Yeah,
correctly? Okay, good.
How
All
are you, my
right.
friend?
I don't
good,
have to read
yourself?
your question. You say your question.
Okay,
Sure,
how you
indeed.
doing, sir? You're doing well?
Yes, I'm feeling better every day. I'm healing nicely.
You're quite busy. I've been following you, and you're traveling a lot and everything. I don't know where you get your energy.
I got a little package next to my bed that says, "This is what you need for the morning."
Okay, so here's my question.
Okay.
My question is, how would you approach soloing with the bow on the double bass? What reference book or etude would you suggest?
Okay, there's 2 questions. I'll take the last one first because it's the easiest one. Most classical bass books are geared to arco skill, bowing,
Okay,
and they have the exercises in the Sears Samandel books 1, 2, and 3.
okay,
The Nanny books, they're all geared toward arco skill. Those books are basically written for people who start early, who want to be in the Philharmonic orchestras as a goal, or solo string players in this case, solo box string players.
okay.
That's what they used to get started. To answer your question, there was at some point someone, to Jamie Avisol, had put out Paul Chambers Arco solo.
Oh, okay.
I haven't
Yes.
seen that, so I don't know how they bowed what he did. Up bow, down bow, separate. I don't know how they marked his solos physically.
Okay,
But
I'll check it.
that's the only place I know of who was taking the time to literally write down a bowed solo with the proper arco notations.
Okay, I'll check it out. Thank you
Please.
very much. Have a good
Yeah.
day.
Thank you.
Mr.
Yes, indeed, sure.
Loxley,
Excuse me?
Mr. Loxley.
Yes.
Ask
Hi,
your
Mr.
question.
Carter.
Hey, how are you,
So,
man?
very well. How are you, my friend?
We
For
do
the time
these.
of day, at my age, pretty damn good.
That's what you
Good, good. We're not, so I'm based out of Toronto. We're excited to see that you're coming to Montreal, but we would love it if you also boogied over to Toronto sometime to see us.
Is that one S or two S being based in somewhere?
That's two.
Okay.
My question is, my daughter just started 8 years old, just starting to get into jazz music. You know, I grew up playing the bass, trying to kind of spread that love to her as well. But she was wondering if there was an address that she could put together a little picture or a note to send to you.
Oh, she can
Uh,
send it to me and I'll make sure that Maestro
Yeah.
gets it. I'm gonna type that in the chat right now.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, and then she asked me to
Sure.
ask that question because we watched the documentary together and she took a lot away from that. So
Did you put anything back?
yeah.
Did
Oh,
you-
perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. I look forward to hear from her soon and see how her left hand is, see what we can get worked out with that.
She's left-handed, so it's more the right hand.
No, 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 no. It's both
That's-
hands, believe me.
Yeah.
I
Thank you,
look
Mr.
forward to
Garrett.
seeing her picture, and I'll help her out.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anybody else have a question? Don't be shy.
There's someone named iPhone here.
Yeah. Hello?
Okay. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi. How you doing, Maestro? I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get my I went into a chat. Now I'm with you guys and I'm just trying to get back. I think I'm back.
You made it.
It's good to see you again.
You're welcome.
I just sent a comment in regard to the gentleman preceding me in regard to a child. Got a 22-year-old granddaughter that just had a 1-year-old, but he's displaying slight hints in interest of piano. So I'm going to guide him naturally to strings and other things. But how would you, I guess, direct me to maybe talk with my granddaughter and give her some ideas to see if he might be interested in something string-wise?
How old is she now?
She's 22, but he's 1, but he's exhibiting.
Yeah, I got that. But you're interested in how your granddaughter can help her child become interested in playing music. Did I get that right?
Well, pretty much so, but he's displaying interest in piano now.
Okay, how old is
He's
he?
got him a piano.
How old is he?
He's 1.
Okay, well, you have at least 6 years to worry about that.
Okay.
And I say that because he's just learning how to be a person.
Well, true.
He's 1 year old and counting. As a parent, I would allow him, in this case, him, to start being him before I place any kind of restrictions on him being somebody else. In this case, to him is going to be turned into a young piano player at 7. He needs 6 years to be him first. You can always play music in the background for me to go to sleep at night, for the meals, a pianist, whatever. He's got a piano, some Herbie Hancock solo piano, some Friedrich Gulda solo piano. I mean, there are a lot of piano players who play a really good, articulate piano solo. I'd let him start to hear what the piano sounds like, just piano, because it's free of everything that's in the way of that just piano sound, of course. And by the time he gets to his 6th birthday, I would try to slide in him some string orchestra stuff to see if he likes how solo violin players sound. How does a solo bass player? One of my records, I play solo, You Are My Sunshine, just bass. Let him hear that to see if that's the kind of sound he wants to fool with. I let him make some of the choices that you give him that you can make available to him that are just that instrument, so he can hear just what that sounds like in his head, and let it devolve from there.
Okay, that's good, because she had been playing while he was in the womb, but she was playing everything that I could even give to her, even your string bass CD that I have that I thought was really brilliant.
Me too.
Well, I'm glad you did it. I don't know if you could see it, but I wore this just so
I
we
see
could
it.
Oh,
talk
Lennox
today.
Lounge. All right.
So last thing, don't want to hog up time. I'd love to be able to have a sit down with you. The last time we actually talked was in Buenos Aires, Argentina. That was in 2019.
Oh, wow.
You were with, well, you performed with Russell Monroe, and I can't remember the gentleman
Malone,
you had on piano.
Russell Malone,
Also
guitar,
Yes,
and maybe a Mulgrew Miller or Donald Vega piano.
might have been Talavega. It wasn't Mulgrew for sure.
Okay.
All right. Well, listen, Maestro, thank you so much. Appreciate.
And we'll make a time when we can talk again with just me and you.
All right, that'll be great. Thank you so much and appreciate everything.
Way
Have a good
before,
day.
way before 6 years goes by, though.
Oh, it'll be longer than that. It'll
Okay.
be sooner than that for
Okay.
sure.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
You can email, since we only know you as iPhone, you can you can
Oh, I'm
email.
sorry.
That's all right. You can email roncarterbassist@gmail and say that we talked in the Zoom, and so we know who you are.
Okay, very
to
good.
Talk in the
Thank you.
future.
You're welcome.
Sure.
All
Thanks,
right.
Thanks,
Sure.
iPhone.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
Lynn
Bye-bye.
M., you have your hand up.
Yeah, so my question is that you mentioned that the Samandal and the Nani books are primarily geared toward orchestral players. So can you
Yes.
comment on what would be the unique arco skills that someone should work on if they want to incorporate arco in their jazz playing?
I'd start with that. It's just a pretty basic book. The first 2 or 3 pages are both on how to get a whole note sounding, what kind of bow to have, the various choices of bows, French or German. Some books have kind of rosin you can buy. Jason Heath, you may know his name. He has a lot of library concerning bow playing for certain age groups, for certain experience levels. And by all means, find a teacher who can help you work through the specific demands that the book tells you are available or not available to you as your skill level proceeds.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Renata?
Hello, hi.
Hello.
First, I want to say it's an honor to be able to talk to you like this
You're
via Zoom.
welcome.
I'm located in Illinois, and I'm excited that you're coming to play in Urbana-Champaign in September, so that'll be great to see you.
Okay.
My question is related to also teaching bass, but like thinking about kids. There are no really methods for kids out there, and I don't know if it's because the theoretical aspects of they're involved in playing jazz, like walking bass lines and thinking the chords and harmony and all that. So if you have any recommendation, or I mean, how young do you usually start kids on jazz, not like classical bass? And
How old are the kids you're talking about now?
well, I'm thinking professionally, I'm a classical bass player, but I play jazz myself as well. And we start kids as young as 6 years old, or 5, 6 years old. And
Yeah,
thinking
I've seen
about
those.
methods for jazz.
I've seen those books at several of the ISB
Mhm.
groups, and on my travels in Europe, I've met several bass teachers who have bass classes of kids as young as 6 and 7, and quartets and transit. So I'm not unfamiliar. I'm not unfamiliar with large kids, large groups of young kids learning how to play the bass. Jazz is a little more complicated. There are a little more responsibilities, and there's a less mimicking of a teacher specifically on how to do stuff. That's the first thing you got to remember. The second thing is, as they are young, 7, 8 years old, it's kind of hard to have them understand the concept of inventing bass lines.
Right.
So what I'd recommend you do for these young kids who are interested, write out some bass lines and have them begin to read the bass line with the chord symbols to understand what these notes represent. I think it's not too advanced for them, but they need to start at some point, sooner the better, understanding what makes up a bass line and how sound is really important of the bass. If you can think about that, if you would like me to kind of email you some beginning bass lines for young bass players to have them start to play a simple blues or a simple kids melody, the Are You Sleeping? Da 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 da, that kind of line.
Uh-huh.
If you want that kind of want them to start understanding what improv really involves and what a bass line does for a song, you let me know, and I will continue a couple of bass lines to some children's songs you think that they should like to know to be able to understand what it
Yeah,
takes to
that'd be
be a jazz
awesome.
player.
Sure, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
I think they're a little bit young for the real process of making bass lines. A lot of people who are 4 times that age have a difficult time.
Yes.
So I wouldn't worry about that.
Yes.
Email, again, email roncarterbassist@gmail, and we'll
I
get
just-
going.
Thank you so much.
I sent it to
Welcome.
her. Yeah.
Can we have a moment here? Just for those who are writing addresses, take this address down for me if you haven't already. Ron Carter, Universe.com. And Renata, have your young bass students look at that site with you
Mm-hmm.
and watch their eyes bulge out at seeing what a bass player has done.
Great. I'll do that.
All legal, by the way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. iPhone, you too.
Thank you. Will
Okay.
do. I'm
Okay.
still clued in.
Okay.
Anybody else have a question?
And just so the record, it's Jairus Reed that says iPhone.
I like
Oh,
iPhone better,
okay.
man. That's much more personal. Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, nice to meet you as well.
Question, oh, yes, Mr. Loxley,
Yeah, sorry, and again, I don't want to hog up
no worries.
No,
all the
come
time
on.
here, but I think, in watching the documentary, Ron, obviously, we take so much from all of the music over all of the years, but I think what I left with after watching that was just all of the advice, those little tidbits of, how to live. And I guess my question is, what's some of the best advice that anyone's ever given you? And, how do I get from here to 90? What's the best advice?
Well, I'm 4 years short of the goal you mentioned, but
Well, I know
that
that.
too.
I know that, but I'm just,
Okay,
forward
wait.
looking for you.
Let me tie my answer together with you, though. I'm still 4 years from that goal. I'm looking forward to getting that by taking some advice someone gave me. Okay, many years ago, when I was 10 or so, I'm going through I'm in pre-junior high school, I guess whatever grade you're in, the third or fourth grade, something like that. And the teacher makes his announcement to the class that, well, kids, we won't talk about math. We don't talk about math or Latin because you color kids won't need it. So I told my mom when I got home, and she put down the iron. She was ironing clothes for a living, and she walked up to the school, which is a block away. She told this teacher, "How dare you insult my son's intelligence? He's able to do whatever's available to him. And for you to stand there in front of a class of 15 or 20 kids and single out the class, him in particular, as not needing to know anything that you think is not necessary for earning a living, insults everybody in my house." So I'm still living on that.
Got it.
Now, that's 2 years right there so far.
Yep.
The next thing for my hand surgeon, I have several hand surgeons who are like jazz. And I invite them to come down and see me play it so they can see me do what I do to understand some of the questions I have to ask them. And one thing I asked them was, I see various sites recommending string players how to get loosened up for the concert, for the stuff like that. And they recommend, and broadly, doing like this, the hand exercises. I'm not sure you do that. They explained to me in some real serious detail when intermission, that to do this stuff with this kind of ferocity, is that a good word?
Yeah.
Intent. It makes the cartilage between these knuckles wear out before their time. And they said, Maestro, please don't do that, because I don't want to see you in my office before your time. So I recommend all my students who think that that's a nice way to do. And unfortunately, we go from our car right to the bandstand. There's no green room or maroon room or brown room that we can warm up in. We're forced to come up with our own devices to get loosened up before the gig starts. They said, whatever you find to do, don't add that to the list. So anyone who has suggestions to kind of loosen up for the gig, at the gig from the car parking lot, carrying your amp and the bass to the bandstand, share them with us and we'll all be better for it. Those doctors will make less money, but it's okay. They don't mind. Okay?
Okay.
Thanks, Ron.
You're welcome.
Mr. Malloy.
Garden,
Hi.
everyone.
That's good. How are you? Come on, let's go. It's dark out.
Hey, I just had a quick question about sort of building a fuller sense of musicality off the bass. This summer, I'm really trying to work on my piano chops, and I was wondering if there's anything that, as a bass player, like I'm not trying to become a concert pianist or anything, but trying to sort of become a more well-rounded musician by understanding the piano a bit more. And I was wondering if there's anything I should be practicing as a bass player for the piano, or if I should just kind of go out and learn a piano like anybody else. It sort of doesn't really matter
Okay.
what, or like
My first question is, how is your bass standing against the wall? I can't tell how it's suspended like that.
it's in a corner, Mr. Carter.
I know it's in the corner, but I can't tell. I guess it's a corner like this, or I can't tell how it's a stationary.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Kind of.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that
Perfect.
makes it any clearer.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
a really
thank-
smaller room, so it's a little deceptive.
Yeah, I was waiting for it to kind of dance for a minute. Okay. I'm not sure whether you want to increase your piano skills or your knowledge on how to play some chords on piano.
More so becoming a more competent pianist to sort of become a more well-rounded bass player.
Okay, well, I used to play the Bach chorales. First of all, it takes a certain level of skill because they're kind of all over the place. Secondly, they're exceptionally, of course, well-written is an understatement. You see you can really look at the chord and see your hand pronouncing the bass, treble, alto, tenor, top notch. You can really see the chord right there, however Bach decides to voice it. That's important to see that so you can see how your note affects the other voices on top of that note. Minimum piano skill can help you see that. And don't worry about playing speedy. It's not, you want to see how the chord works. I found those things later on. As I was studying in college to get a teaching certificate, I had to play a little more challenging things. So I learned a couple of Bach the piano pieces that were going like. I learned a couple of those, you know, and I learned the Star Spangled Banner in 2 keys. So that's what I did. It didn't make me a better bass player in and of itself. It allowed me to see what a piano player is supposed to do to make my bass notes work better.
Cool. Thank you for your answer.
At some point, I wanted to be a piano player. When I got out of college and I was working gigs in New York, I was working a lot of duo gigs, piano and bass. And I decided that one night I want to come to this gig and I want to sit down and play the piano all night and hire a bass player. So for 2 years, I studied once a week with Mike Longo, who passed away a couple of years ago. And I got better and better at playing the piano. Fast forward, I'm on a tour in Japan with the Nanette and Hubert Laws. And we're in this place, a real high-end arts center with a nice stage for a small concert. And Nanette played there, you know. And it's time for an encore. And I was feeling pretty good because the band really sounded great and the bass sounded wonderful. I said, let me check out my stuff. So everyone heads toward the bandstand. They all have a seat. And I put the bass down. I walk toward the piano and tell the piano player, move over for a minute, you know. I proceeded to play Ruby My Dear for my encore. It sounded great, but I missed the bass. So I decided, enough. Okay, back to the bass for real now.
Okay.
Okay,
Mr.
footnote for your library.
Yeah.
Thank you for the answer.
Yes.
Mr. Sosa.
Yes, Maestro, absolutely honored to be speaking with you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. How can I help you?
Strange question, but I hope you
Okay.
indulge me on this. Throughout my journey in listening to jazz, I discovered that it's not a coincidence that jazz lovers put a lot of importance on sound quality and audio fidelity, and listening to the music at home or watching it live in person. Sound is so important. We'd love to get your thoughts on why you think that. Why you think the sound and getting the most realistic sound is like so important to us jazz lovers?
I think what's appealing to us is to be able to hear, with a good recording, a sound that encompasses your ability to hear each instrument do whatever they do. On a good recording, you can hear the bass. On a good recording, you can hear the soloist. On a good recording, you hear the drums. There's complete set, depending on how well it's recorded. One of the things, Mr. Sosa, that the jazz rock community brought to the jazz awareness was that they wanted to make sure their gigs at the club sounded like the records that the people bought. To that end, they took their own keyboards. They took their own sound tech guy. They had rehearsals with these environments to make sure that the sound was good for them. They had long sound checks. I think the public got used to hearing a good jazz band and in stereo, not just monophonic stuff from a car radio that's a speaker about this big. The audience got used to accepting that sound as the sound of a good jazz band. And until the jazz community itself buys into that completely, they're going to go to the club and leave not quite fulfilled because the drums are too loud, or the piano's too muffled, or the sound system in the back sounds like it came from a Cracker Jack box. One of the reasons it took me a while to get a really good home stereo system, that I know how it sounds to play. I know how jazz is supposed to sound. As a bass player, I'm in the middle of that stuff. So if I'm going to sit down in my home and listen to what a jazz set, I want to feel like I'm in the band. And I've gotten enough trial and error that I can invite guys to my house and say, hey man, come to my house and see the band.
And there's something so potent in that, isn't it? To hear everyone work with each other in that music and to hear everyone bounce off each other.
I think it's critical. It defines the music.
Absolutely. I love getting your thoughts. Maestro, thank you so much. I hope to see you in person soon one day. Thank you.
Me too. I'm getting better at getting live too.
You look great, Maestro. See you soon.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Favara. Unmute. Can you unmute yourself?
I'm so good at not doing that right. So I wanted to put forward some things that I've learned from all the teachers that I've had, if it will help the group. May I? This is regarding warm up. You said if anybody, okay, the first thing is be hydrated. It's important to have good hydration because of your blood level and your oxygen in your body. The second thing is potassium. Your hands are so far away from your heart that potassium is very important. So maybe bring a banana before you gig. I learned that from a great bass player, and it's really helped. The third thing might be a little unusual, but there's a study called Qigong. Qigong. And what it does, it's a series of tapping. What it does is very gentle. Sometimes if you take Tai Chi, they'll incorporate that. What it does is it activates your lymphatic system because you want to get the blood to your hands and your muscles so you have endurance, you have good blood supply. So those are all things that you can do that aren't related to doing that, right? So I hope that helps everyone, but it's kind of like a sneaky way of getting the blood going so that and you can do that when you're setting up, so that's my 2 cents. I hope it helps someone here.
Well, again, recommendations are always interesting to hear, and I'm not sure how well all of that will go live in the club in New York before the first set. You go from the club car to the
Right.
bandstand because there's no dressing room and nowhere to do some of the exercises you recommend. Having said that, I'm sure if there's a space at a major concert hall, there's always a really deep backstage where the opera sets are. There are places that do that if that's what the requirements for warming up for the gig it takes to begin to get physically comfortable for playing the
Right.
music.
I do them in my car. I take a banana and some water, boom, boom, tap, tap, done.
Okay, well, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14 people who will not have your advice on their chops. Good for you guys. Thank
I
you.
hope it helps everyone. Thank you, sir, for Ron. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
John Whitehead.
Hi there, sir. Thank you for participating here. I thank you for a great performance at Blue Note. I saw one of your trio.
Oh wow!
Last week.
We were on fire that night, man.
That was great. My question is, when you're learning a new song, how do you approach learning a song that you haven't written yourself? One you're not familiar with. How do you go about learning it? Do you try to copy what you've heard on recordings, or the way it's written?
Stop.
Yeah, I don't think.
Stop.
I'm here to listen.
The first thing I want to learn, what's the form of this tune? How many bars is it? Is that what's the first half of this tune? Is there a verse? How many bars is the first part of this tune? 8 repeated? Is there a bridge? Is it 16/16? What key is it in? All those are the first things I consider when I'm learning a song that I haven't heard before, or may have heard it but never played it, to be able to understand what it's all about. The first thing I want to do is, what's the form? The second thing is, what key are we in? And third, what's the right tempo for this song? And what's the verse? If I can get a handle on those 3 things in that order, it gives me a head start of learning what this tune can represent to someone like the guy who wrote it. Right now, there's a big wave of guys whose bands insist that the band memorize the charts and stuff like that. I'm not one of those guys. I want to read what's coming, you know? I'd rather spend my energy on finding the right notes, not making sure I memorize the part correctly. And I'm sure that rubs some guys the wrong way because they don't want music stands in the way. Well, I got a great tie, man. I got 7 great ties. And I have a great color. I want them to see me going to work with this great fucking tie on, man, finding these notes. Not that I memorize letter A to letter B and the third ending. No, I'm not doing that, man. And the last thing I do is see who else in the band knows this tune. And how do they know it? You know, I'll give you an example. John is one example of just, what's the first chord to But Not For Me? The first, everyone hears that song, they got a different downbeat, they got the first different chord is different. If we play an E flat, the first chord, E flat triad, E flat major 7, was the first chord F minor. Well, okay, just give me a head start, brother, man, and I'll find out one of them's going to work. I've got enough choruses. That's how we do that. That's how I do that. And so that there were 4 or 5 records of that song where these bands have different first chord downbeats. I've heard Ahmad Jamal play it with the F minor chord before. I played with Chet Baker. The first chord was the E flat chord. So I mean, I know I'm the only bass player in this band. I want a head start. To get the right note to open up. I know this tune, guys. At least the first measure. Help me for the other 29 or 30 measures. I got this one.
Thank you. That's giving me a lot to think about.
Sorry.
But it resonates. No, but it resonates.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to copy what's been done, because it's not me, and it's also, I don't remember it that way.
Yeah.
But
Not just that you know, I met Dave Brubeck, bless his heart, up at one of the Newport festivals. And we had a nice chat, you know. And one of the things we talked about was his song, In Your Own Sweet Way. I think so. And the way Dave wrote it, he do it a certain fashion. When Miles played it, he played a different melody than Dave wrote. And Dave liked Miles's different note for his melody. So he incorporated in the second printing of his song that note. So unless you heard Dave Brubeck's original version, if you knew that really well, then they heard the next version and said, man, he played the wrong note because that's not what that is because Miles did this, or whoever the artist in attendance happened to be playing that version. So I'm not sure that listening to another group play it is helpful to learn a song. That's a good reason why maybe Miles's version. Well, you know, I worked up for a couple of gigs, you know, and then unless you knew the melody to Still by Starlight, you wouldn't know that he knew the melody because he's not really playing the melody.
Yeah.
You know, or 1944 Coleman Hawkins version of Body and Soul. He plays the first 8 bars, man, and then there's no melody after that. But the record sells, it's all like hot pancakes, man, back in the day. I'm not sure you could copy a Coleman Hawkins record to say, I got the melody of the Body and Soul, because he didn't play the melody, not in its totality. You know? So,
Fair.
have I swamped you yet?
Oh, no, this is perfect, and it resonates with other things I've heard from other teachers too. So.
Okay, well, I'm resonating pretty good today. Thank you.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bridget Jones.
Good afternoon, everyone. You know what
Hello.
time zone you're in. I usually describe myself as 37 going on 90 because I'm a homebound cripple these days, post-infectious cripple. And you're really making me feel like I can't do that anymore, Mr. Carter. So you're doing amazing, and I'm in awe as with your whole entire life work. Basically, I would love to hear some stories. It's like my shameless request. I would love to hear about Eric Dolphy and Bobby Timmons and Monk. I mean, there's so many figures. Oh, and Roberta. I didn't even realize there's so many albums I didn't even realize you were on. Like as I've been teaching my, over the years, just getting my ears into things. And the First Take album has been a huge influence in my life in the last few years, and particularly like coming to terms with what's been going on in my life, trying to arrange my own care and everything. I'm just continuously in awe of that album, and I also just want to know if you know anything about how Roberta is doing, because I heard about her ALS diagnosis, and just the media doesn't.
Okay, well,
Stop
right there.
Yeah, there's so much there. Yeah,
Let me get those questions off you. If I can check those boxes off your question list. Roberta is in under home care. About a year ago, I found out where she was staying and her caregiver, how to reach that person. And my wife and I went to visit because she and Roberta knew very well. So I took my bass, and for an hour, me and Roberta sang and played for an hour and 25 minutes. And the operator said that the caregiver said, man, why are you doing that? I said, well, she's supposed to have this kind of concern. And right now, I'm the guy who's going to give it. She said, well, do you have things to do? I said, yeah, right now it's making her happy. That'll last me for 3 days. So I'm okay with that. My Thelonious Monk story was, I guess. I got to New York in 1959, August, and I was making gigs, trying to get some work, not get famous. Just wanted to work. I had some ideas here. Do these ideas in my head? I do want to make anybody's eyebrows go like this. So one Saturday night, I'm at home in a one-room apartment with my wife, thinking about the next gig, and the phone rings, and it's Sam Jones, a wonderful bassist, who at the time was working with Thelonious Monk, which I didn't know. He said, hey, Stretch, could you call me, because I had pretty good hand size in practice. I'm at home now, and I'm sick. I got a gig with Thelonious Monk at the place called Circle and the Square, which is down in the Village. And I got the flu, man. Can you cover the gig for me? I said, Sam, I'm in New York. What do you mean cover for the gig? What does that mean? He said, well, can you go and play with Monk? I said, I can play with anybody, man. He said, well, he's waiting for you down at the club at the Circle in the Square. So I said, okay, I'll get down there. I got there in time. I met him at the door. I said, Mr. Monk, I'm Ron Carter. I'm subbing for Sam Jones, who was homesick. He says, well, do you know any of my songs? I said, I know most of them. He said, well, tonight you're going to find out which ones you don't know. I said, okay, here we go. My Eric Dolphy story. Eric was a lovely man who moved to New York when I came to New York. He moved from California with Chico's band to New York ultimately. And Eric didn't know how to cook. I mean, Eric, he could have difficult time boiling water, you know. So I said, Eric, you got to eat better by learning how to cook. He said, well, Mr. Ron, what do? I said, I got an idea for you. Here's my address. You come by my house, my apartment. So he came by about 2 o'clock on time. I said, Eric, this is my wife, Janet. She will show you how to cook 3 meals so you can eat at least good 3 meals 1 day a week. And Eric, he said, okay, well, I said, Eric, that's the best thing for you right now. Not B-flat 7, not a new flute, a good fucking meal, okay? Let's get that done right now, right now. So he and my wife became very good friends. She showed him 3 easy meals to cook that he could do, could cook at leisure time. And we felt sure that for 1 night a week, Eric's going to eat a great, great meal. One more story of Roberta Flack, First Take. Roberta Flack was discovered in Washington, D.C. at a club called Mr. Charlie's, I think. And Les McCann had recommended to the producer, the Atlanta Rockets, Joel Dorn, to get to Washington and hire this lady get her for a record, because he's really got a nice trio down there. So Joel had gone to Washington, D.C. and heard Roberta Flack and decided he was right. She needed a record date in New York. So Roberta and her trio came to New York at a certain time to make this record. And after 2 days of recording, they got nothing done. And Joel Dorn, who was not going to be defeated by the band not making it, called me and a couple of guys to say, hey, guys, Ron, got this lady from Washington called Roberta Flack, who's got some nice arrangements, and she's got a good voice, plays good piano, but the band doesn't know how to make a record. I said, well, I'm saying, so what? So what do you want me to do? You know? I said, can you get here in about a half hour and make this record? Well, I said, well, I take more than that because I got to take the subway, but I can get down there in 45 minutes. He said, okay, I'll see you down here at 2 o'clock. So I got on the bus, got on the subway, and rode my bass about 3 blocks from subway to Atlantic Records on 60th Street in Broadway at the time. It is now a Target store. So we get upstairs, and there's Roberta's lady with afro, big hair, you know, and she's sitting at the piano kind of noodling and explaining to her, Joel Dorn tells her who I am, and here's Grady Tate. I mean, here's Ray Lucas, a really great drummer who was just finished driving a cab before he got to the date, and Lucky Pizzarella, and we're going to make this record. So she said, okay, well, I have some music here. I'll show you what I play, and can you make this work? I said, Roberta, that's our job. The result of the record is First Take. Bill Fisher came in and wrote some nice arrangements, who was from New Orleans, guy I knew. And she was never the same, nor was her career. How's those 4 stories for your day? Ms. Jones, is that okay?
I can't be greedy. I'm yeah.
The other stories are for page 6. That's another story.
Thank you so much.
Do me a favor. You take care of you.
Yep. Agreed.
Okay. iPhone said, yeah, do that.
iPhone, right. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. Yes, Mr. Goldman?
Talk real fast, we get 2 more.
You have to unmute yourself. Mr. Goldman?
Is that working now?
Yes, it is.
Oh, great. Big fan for a long, long time. And I love all your stuff. and all the other great artists that you've worked with. And one of my favorites is the duos that you did uh, with the guitarist, um, who now all of a sudden I can't remember his name.
Jim
Jim
Hall.
Hall.
Yes,
Jim
yes.
Hall, yeah. And I was just wondering if you could just kind of, discuss your approach to playing with someone like that that's just guitar and bass with no other instruments, because you played so much, I guess, independently is a way to describe it, versus working with a rhythm section and a larger ensemble.
That feels like a pretty broad question, but it's pretty specific. I'm trying to find out which category to put that in.
The lyricism.
Yeah, one of the things that I admired about Jim Hall was the sound of the guitar. He played with a pick, and guitar players with a pick sound is pretty pointed. It's not round. It's kind of bright in sound. And I never understood how Jim Hall got that finger sound with a pick.
Right.
First of all, and that I say that because his sound made it easy for to make my range of the bass more complete, because his sound was not getting in the way of my range.
Right.
Jim he knew the verses to songs, which I didn't know at all. I knew when the tune started, but all this foolishness before the melody, I didn't know any of that stuff, man. Hip hoppers never worried about that stuff. What's the tune start? Bam, that's it right there. We got used to that kind of immediate impact. We felt that we didn't need a warm up to get to the melody. And Jim was really a fan of arrangements, and I was less a fan of arrangements. So it seemed to be our job was Jim would do the little sketch arrangements at his house. He'd bring them to the gig, and I would make them work. And we survived on that kind of camaraderie of him trusting my judgment to fix his arrangements, and me trusting his judgment to bring something that I could work on to fix. He wasn't afraid of certain keys. He wasn't afraid of certain tempos. He liked to play some of his wife's pieces where Jane was her name, if I can remember. And he had a broad sense of how to accompany me without getting in my way of my range. And that when I played a note that was like F sharp on the A chord, he didn't turn around and say, "Hey man, what are you doing?" He understood that my note had a reason for being there. He learned, Larry, to listen to the note before this curious note and see how I resolved it. That let me even be more comfortable knowing that I'm the guy who's making this work by my note choices. And since there's no other sound but me, bass, and guitar, it's easy to follow that line of thinking since there's no other sound, not rhythm, no other sound but me and Jim. So that forced me to be even more articulate in setting up this curious note that I wanted Jim Hall to stumble and say, sorry, that. He was great for writing notes from my house, and I miss you, and you sure sound good last night, and those kind of things. And then I think guys don't do that anymore, They just kind of think it's either beyond them, or they don't think that the other partner needs to have that kind of appreciation of what they do. I've always called the band next and said, "You guys were out of sight. I appreciate you doing, I appreciate your effort. I appreciate you trusting my judgment, my order of songs, my tempos. Anything I did was offensive to you, let me know, and I'll do it with lowercase letters next time. I have a speech coming on. If I say something that you may not agree with, I'll try not to say that. I think it's important to give me that kind of leeway to express a thought, like the New York Times has a banner, all the news is fit to print. There's not a jazz review of us band. What's wrong with this news? I don't want to offend my partners in the band talking like that, Right. So, because Jim was of the same mindset, and of the same personality character-wise, we had a great deal of chances to play some wonderful music. And every now and then I just stop in my tracks and say, gee, I miss Jim Hall. Gee, I miss Jim Hall so much today. A certain tune, 7 Come 11, Alone Together. Those songs were Jim's, he loved those tunes, you know. And occasionally when they cross my mind like this, I think, here comes Jim Hall. Bye, Jim Hall. That.
And when you mentioned the arrangements and the charts, were those melody and chords?
Yeah. Yes.
Some beautiful stuff. I really appreciate you
Thank you.
discussing it.
Thank you. One more and we call it a day.
Okay, Tian.
Hi, Miss Carter.
How are you?
Great. It's so great to see you and such an honor. And my question is, what's your advice on traveling with the bass? Because as far as I know, you are like traveling around the world. So when you travel like to Europe, you bring your own bass or?
In New York, there's an expression called bass du jour. That means the bass of the day. So I have a tour set up now in November of 11 concerts. For 9 of them, it'll be a different bass every night. For the other 2, the promoter's providing with the bass that I know it's a good fiddle. So I'm looking forward to learning how to play the bass better every night times 9. The point though is that the people who come to the concert, they aren't supposed to know it's not my bass in New York. But it's not the bass on the records that they heard. Or the YouTube. I'm seeing the bass for the first time on that gig, on that concert, when there's strangers. The bass is as strange for me, to me, as the audience is strange to that bass. My job is to earn my keep by playing like it's mine. Whatever is possible, I try to do it in the 2-minute, 12-minute, 20-minute sound check without literally altering the guy's bass. I'm not lowering the strings. I'm not changing the strings. I'm not doing any of that stuff. I want the bass to be as pristine for this guy when I give it back to him or her as it was before I got it. The one thing I might do, Tian, is to clean the fingerboard. You know, people who don't do that, they have their own oil on the fingerboard and rosin and just dirt in general, you know. I can't stand leaving the gig with my hands looking like I played in mud at the playground. You know? So we'll take 20 minutes and get some soft cloth, some rubbing alcohol, and clean the fingerboard. I have a better chance of feeling what I'm trying to feel rather than this layer of terrible notes and all that stuff in the way. You know?
There's you
Thank
talk,
you.
I think it's in the Blueprint for the Working Jazz Bassist book. You talk about what you do. There's a list of things of what you do every time you are confronted with a new bass, and all cleaning the fingerboard is one of them, but there's a whole list of things that Maestro does every time to this day, right?
Yes.
every time
Every
he's
I
got
play
a
bass.
new bass. So you might want to check that out.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
It's in this book.
Right, Blueprint for the Working Jazz. I'll put the link in the chat. One sec.
On page 64.
Thank you.
64. How to-
Maestro, can Ryan?
It says how to audition an unfamiliar string bass.
Okay, there it
Can
is.
Ryan Malloy ask one question? One more before we go, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Speak.
Hello, Mr. Carter again. I was wondering, when I study a particular bass player in depth, I like to try to understand their influences. And it's a bit of a hypothetical question, but if you could take a bass lesson with any bassist from just the history of the instrument, who would you study with, and why do you think you would study with him?
Well, given how I eventually play the instrument, none of the methods that are available are based on what I now do. And I'm not sure I'm interested to go back and find out how it was in the old days. You know, and that, as a good question, my answer sounds heartless and cold-blooded. I equate it to a more modern question. Would I want to drive a 2020 automobile or a 1920 automobile with hard rubber tires and no power steering, 2 gears, and a windshield wiper that works only by hand? And I'm taking your question seriously.
No, no,
when I came to New York, I was coming from a school of 4 years of some serious competitive concert orchestral playing. And I moved to New York. I didn't know anybody, and I didn't know any bass teacher. I didn't know anybody in New York at all. And I'm looking around for some teachers because I want to maintain my skill. And I did talk to some teachers who told me, who heard me play, they said I played good enough. If you play all right, man, why you want teachers for? These are teachers asking me. I said, well, okay, thanks for your time, you know? And I felt, and I didn't quite understand, I didn't have the vocabulary to speak with them on my feelings. My vocabulary had never come across that kind of commentary, you know? I said, gee whiz, I'm asking for a lesson. He's telling me I played good enough. My thought were I wish I expressed to you what I really felt, but this probably isn't the right space to do that. But man, so I told my wife, she said, this guy told me that I played good enough. I said, what do you think about that? I said, the motherfucker felt threatened. Pardon me, Bridget. Yeah, the motherfucker felt threatened, you know? He's gonna make sure that he stays on top of the pile. So I said, well, fuck him. I'm gonna show him how good I can play. I'm still looking at that commentary and I'm still getting better every day. Richard, sorry about the language skills, but that's all I can say that really be impactful to the Ryan's question, you know?
Thank you for being so honest with us. Appreciate it so much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a nice time here. Hope to see you a month from now or less, and bring some questions.
Yep. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maestro. Take care now.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Good night, wherever you are.
Mrs. Calabash.